It is one of the only documents that a judge will see in which the offender has had a place.
Tonight, GLADU reports which take into account an offender's Indigenous background may soon be a reality in the Northwest Territories.
Just caring for them, making sure that we monitor them, and if they go back into an overdose, we take care of them properly.
Plus, an update on the ongoing opioid crisis in Vancouver's downtown east side.
You look at the four sacred colors, represents all races. You look at the circle, we're all equal.
And first of its kind, a Nova Scotia hospital creates an Indigenous garden. Hello, good evening, Tanse, and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. The Ontario Provincial Police has charged one of their own with 2 criminal code offences. Constable James Clark, 50, is charged with obtaining sexual services for consideration and breach of trust. Clark is a 20-year veteran of the OPP. He has spent the last 5 years with the Force's Kenora Detachment. The charges follow a year-long police investigation that was sparked by an APTN Investigates story in plain sight, produced by Kenneth Jackson and Cullen Crozier in November of last year. Although the Supreme Court ruling for GLADU has been the law for more than 20 years, Canada has not developed a national standard for preparing GLADU reports. The Northwest Territories is exploring what a formal system for GLADU writers and reports would look like. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs brings us that story.
The goal is to not put people in custody. And even
Desiree Duplessis has made it her job to inform the courts on the personal and community histories of colonialism and its ongoing effects on Indigenous people. She does this through GLADU reports, and now she's running public education sessions in the Northwest Territories, a place where pre-sentence reports are used instead of GLADU.
A GLADU report is different than a pre-sentence report because of the participation of the offender. So from the pre-sentence reports that I've written, it's all very, third person. So-and-so did this, they were born here, they've done this. And although there are sections for the GLADU factors, I don't think that they are explored in enough detail to really get the gist of what had happened.
Duplessis is a senior manager and GLADU caseworker for Aboriginal Legal Services based in Toronto, an organization hired by the Territorial Department of Justice to prepare a report on whether the NWT would benefit from GLADU reports and the delivery model for them.
The reason that we discuss the recommendations with the client is because where they are involved in the process and they're agreeable to the recommendations, they are more likely to follow up with them. And if we do the legwork to determine what options are available to the client, the judge is more likely to adopt them.
GLADU refers to the historic 1999 ruling in R versus GLADU and states judges must take into account circumstances of Indigenous offenders while sentencing, such as intergenerational traumas from the residential school system. GLADU writing supports are established in other parts of the country, such as Ontario, British Columbia, Alberta, and Yukon. Executive Director of Legal Aid for the Territory, Karen Wilford, says the NWT already includes GLADU factors in pre-sentence reports, written by government officials like probation officers.
Well, I'm not sure that pre-sentence reports are limited. In fact, the Legal Aid Commission hires lawyers from other jurisdictions to come in and go on circuit court. And the commentary I've had from defense counsel are that pre-sentence reports that are done here are excellent, and they're as thorough as they can be within that genre.
At the Béchacon information session, participants say pre-sentence reports don't capture the whole picture because the offender must consent to having legal professionals contact other sources to provide information, something they may be reluctant to do.
So you're able to get more information because you don't have to have the consent of the person.
That's right.
With us, when we're working with a client, he has to consent to us talking to either his parents, his friends, and if he says no, we can't. and sometimes it ends up being just him.
Yeah.
Knowing them a bit more would help me as a diversion person, understand where this person is coming from.
In a territory where the overwhelming majority of folks incarcerated are Indigenous, a big takeaway from the session is that Gladue could be another tool used here to better serve offenders with restorative justice.
It is one of the only documents that a judge will see in which the offender has had a place. And so we often include direct quotes from the offender and their family and friends or anybody that we interview, and that really allows them to tell their story in their words.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Bechecal.
British Columbia declared a state of emergency because of the opioid epidemic more than 7 years ago. And 8 years later, people are still dying from overdoses in record numbers. APTN's Tina House joins us from Vancouver for an update on the situation.
Tens of thousands of lives have been lost since the opioid epidemic first hit Canada. Here in BC on the downtown east side is ground zero. Joining me today is Trey Helton, manager of the Overdose Prevention Society. Trey, what's happened since the epidemic first began, and has anything gotten any better?
It's continued the same. I mean, the drug toxicity is much more unstable now with benzodope being a regular mainstay now. It's either like it's a 50-50 crapshoot if you get regular fentanyl, which is deadly, or fentanyl mixed with benzodope. And the Canadian Health Authority just released a standing findings on things that could be done better around here, and they released the stats, and they're not really doing anything. Like, there's a lot of things that could be done. It's like they just keep doing investigation after investigation and not doing anything, releasing the findings. So the fact is, like, winter's coming, and a lot of the SROs and low-income resident units in the downtown east side have lit on fire recently, and we need more housing for people. So definitely for the wintertime, yeah.
I mean, Tent City is literally just a block away from us right now. I mean, people are preferring to stay outside rather than stay in these SROs because of, issues with bed bugs and cockroaches and other things. But what else should be done immediately?
More shelters would be great. The shelters are already at max capacity, and it's only going to get colder. More resource centers within the neighborhood for people to take showers and maybe wash their clothes. That would be something that could be helpful, and obviously safe supply options. So,
with benzodope, I understand that you continue to keep overdosing, that even Narcan can't even stop the effects of benzo. What are you doing on the front lines to help people that are going under because of benzo?
Just caring for them, making sure that we monitor them, and if they go back into an overdose, we take care of them properly and ship them off to the hospital as necessary. Yeah, I mean, it's just about letting people walk their path, and when they're ready to talk about some sort of recovery option, I'm always there for them to share what worked for me and what didn't work for me. And if they ever want to make a detox request, I can make that call for them. Unfortunately, there's a lot of barriers to getting into detox. If you have benzodiazepines in your system, it can be incredibly difficult to get into a detox facility due to the fact that benzo withdrawal is incredibly dangerous, and they need to be monitored by a doctor in case they go into convulsions or a seizure. So even if people don't want to take benzos, but they have benzos in their system, it can complicate detox access. So it's just really sad.
The drug spectrometer, is that still a thing down here? Are they still testing drugs, and have they given you more options to test those drugs for people here on the street?
It's limited. I mean, there is drug testing provided by VCH. It's sporadic. I don't always know the times. They're at Insight at 139 East Hastings on different days at different times. Sometimes the drug testers themselves are overworked and feeling burnout, so they can't come in sometimes. But I always just refer people to get your drugs tested, located at 880 East Hastings. They're open 7 days a week. From 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. So, but the thing that really sucks about it is that everyone goes there. So if you're going there and you're in a rush and you want to use your drugs right away, sometimes there could be a 2-hour wait just to get a small sample tested, so people still end up using alone just to get their fix quickly. So I mean, more drug testing facilities within the downtown east side would be better.
Trey, you've joined us now a couple times on our show, and you've talked about your concerns here on the downtown east side. Has anything improved at all since we last saw you?
I don't think so. No, not really. Nothing. No, that's really sad. I don't like really put me on the spot there, Tina. I don't know. Nothing's improved. It's really sad. I don't know how to say that. Like, I laugh when I'm nervous. It's nothing funny. Nothing's improved. Absolutely nothing's improved.
Trey, thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck with all your work. Thank you. Back to you in studio.
We want to hear what you think about some of the stories you've seen so far tonight. Here's how to continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca, or you can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Some good news out of Ottawa today. The federal government is kicking in just over $6 million for an Inuit research network, hoping to expand the research scope and action plan regarding health needs in the north. The multi-million-dollar cash injection will be split between the 4 governing organizations serving Inuit Nunangat and will allow for more Inuit-led research in health, which is closely tied to factors in wildlife, environment, and culture. Inuit Taprit Kanatami President Natan Obed says addressing all the needs in the north will take time and a continued commitment from Canada, but that this is an important step forward.
It will be great to see over the next 3 years just how far the reach of this particular announcement and these funds will be. But we have optimism that we are building the implementation of our national strategy on research and creating Inuit self-determination in research to allow for a platform of success across a number of fields.
All right, it's time for a short break, but still to come, highlights from today's APTN in Focus. Welcome back to APTN News. For the past 25 years, Juno Award-winning Blackie and the Rodeo Kings have been one of the most esteemed music collectives in North America. This past summer, they released their 11th studio album, which the band is currently touring on. It's made for a busy year for Mohawk singer-songwriter-artist Tom Wilson. The documentary version of Wilson's book, Beautiful Scars, the story of a rock star who discovers his true identity, was released earlier this year. Tom Wilson joins us now. Tom, thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to speak with us.
It's great to be here.
So you're in Winnipeg for a Blackie and the Rodeo Kings show tonight. How does it feel to be back on the road as we try to move into a post-pandemic world here?
Well, you know, old dogs, old tricks. I've been doing this for 47 years, so there's no surprises, you know, except that the drives seem a little bit longer and the cold seems a little bit colder, but the audiences are making us feel loved. So I think more so for the audiences, they're happy to be back out in beautiful theaters watching music and people interact.
Well, you certainly got some great weather here in Winnipeg anyway for the time being. So earlier this year, Shane Belcourt's documentary based on your book, Beautiful Scars, was released. Has it been a different experience for you and your family to have it, you know, on film and at these festivals rather than in your book?
Well, first of all, Shane Belcourt brought his heart to this project. Initially, my mother had no plans on being any part of the film. She wasn't against it, she just didn't want to be in it. And Shane appealed to her. He came over to her house with some donuts, some coffee, and we hung around her dining room table and we talked. And she could see the clear light that he was bringing to our family. And I think that shows in the film. As a result, he got my mother to speak in ways that none of us have ever heard her speak before. The camera and microphones were almost like a confessional to her, and she said things that none of us had ever heard before. If there is to be a star in a documentary film, it definitely is my 83-year-old mother, Janie, because she kicked some serious, she threw down.
Well, that's awesome to hear, and it's been a few years now since the truth about your identity was revealed to you. How has that sort of affected your music and your art over these years?
What's changed my life? There's a couple avenues that we can take when we discover our identity after 53 years of really not knowing who we are. Our blood memory is always running through us, and if we pay attention to it, then it gives us a lot of answers, of course. And there is our true selves that are looking to manifest themselves in some way. I've done that my entire life through my music and through my visual art. And now that I know that I'm Mohawk, that the power behind what I'm doing is even greater. The intent is sharper, and hopefully the results are going to help our communities.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll have to leave it there, Tom, but thank you so much for taking some time here on your busy schedule. I know you got a lot going on and with your tour and everything, so good luck with that. And again, thank you so much for being here.
All right.
Blackie and the Rodeo Kings will be playing tonight at the Burton Cummings Theatre at 8 p.m. here in Winnipeg. This week on In Focus, we spoke to residential school survivors and where they're at 3 months after the Pope's visit. Here's a look at what some of them had to say. Gifting a headdress to Pope Francis, do you regret doing that looking back now, given some of the reaction that's been the reaction of a lot of people?
Well, notwithstanding the reaction, including threats on my life, I have absolutely no regret in what we did, because we followed our traditional protocols. We did our ceremonies. We were advised by elders and our committee before we undertook the action of gifting His Holiness Pope Francis with a headdress to signify that he had asked for pardon several times, and I myself offered forgiveness for what happened to me as a child.
I left her broken. It was a very traumatizing experience for me because of what I witnessed there and what I seen, and it was, they were saying to forgive and heal and reconciliation. Mm-hmm. I kept hearing those three words, but when I seen the names of those little children that didn't make it home, it just really impacted me emotionally. It took me a month to come out and say what happened. There was no supports. Mm-hmm. There was no presence of our medicines, our sacred medicines.
I was standing for my ancestors, and I was standing for my brothers and sisters that were taken. So to me, there was value in the apology, in the fact that the highest of the Vatican came to apologize.
My first day in grade 1, my teacher asked me to count 1 to 10, but she didn't specify a language. So I spoke in every language I knew, which was Squamish, Musqueam, French, Spanish, Italian, German, and English. Wow. And instead of being rewarded, I was dragged to the principal's office, and I was whipped by the principal and 3 other nuns for speaking other languages. So as a 5-year-old, I was really confused because I didn't know why I was being punished.
All right, it's time for one final break, but still ahead, a hospital in Atlantic Canada gets the region's first Indigenous garden.
And it's meant to be there for a purpose, for healing, for everyone, not just Indigenous people, but for all races, all societies.
Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Our warm weather days are numbered in much of the country. APTN's Cheryl McKenzie shared this great shot of a fall walk in Manitoba's Interlake region with her brother and dogs, Pepper and Brownie. If you want to be featured as our photo of the day, you can email your shots to share@aptn.ca along with a location and description. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Beginning on the East Coast, 10 degrees in Charlottetown and 13 and clear in Halifax. -1 in Cartwright and 0 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay. 11 degrees and clear in Quebec City and 17 and clear in Montreal. 18 degrees in London and 16 in North Bay. 14 in Wawa and 18 and clear in Thunder Bay. -5 in Snow in Churchill and 0 in Norway House. 4 degrees in Barons River and 7 in Winnipeg. -3 in Swift Current and -7 in North Battleford. -4 in Buffalo Narrows and -8 in Stony Rapids. Moving west, -5 in Fort Chipewyan and -1 in Peace River. Clear and -3 in Edmonton and clear and -3 in Calgary. 6 degrees in Vancouver and 5 in Bella Coola. 7 degrees in Sandspit and -5 in Fort Nelson. -10 in Beaver Creek and -18 in Rock River. -13 in Norman Wells and -7 in Fort Simpson. -13 in Fort McPherson and -12 in Inuvik. -20 in Cambridge Bay and -19 in Chesterfield. -19 in Resolute and -8 in Iqaluit. An Indigenous healing garden opened at a health centre in Truro, Nova Scotia is the first of its kind in Atlantic Canada. It's dedicated to Sheila Glode of the Millbrook First Nation, a dialysis patient who died in 2013. The garden honors other community members who have died from kidney disease. It features traditional Indigenous symbols and plants used in ceremony. There's artwork designed by Mi'kmaq artists and an educational space to learn more about traditional Indigenous healthcare. Chief Bob Glode of the Millbrook First Nation says the park builds a path towards reconciliation.
You look at the four sacred colors, represents all races. You look at the circle, we're all equal. You look at the dream catcher, what that symbolizes, and the unity it represents, and it's meant to be there for a purpose, for healing, for everyone, not just Indigenous people, but for all races, all societies. And
all right, that's all we have for you tonight on APTN National News. For more news, you can head to our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Daryl Stranger. Thank you for joining us, Miigwech, and have a great night.